Today I'm going to show you a really easy, quick, fun little creative project that you can do with scraps of old jeans, turning them into these fun little like art cards. You can either do these that you can frame or even cover old greeting cards and have super cool upcycled custom greeting cards. All you need for this project is fabric scraps. Denim works great, but you can really do it with any textile. You can either sew them by hand, or I'll be showing you how to sew them on a sewing machine. So I'm going to show you how to do these checkerboards that I've done on single layer cardstock. I'll also show you how you can do them on a card, but I have these other kinds. If you look in the notes, you'll see a link to a blog post where I talk about how to make all these different versions. And that's it. Let's get started. Things that I'm going to use for this project. So I'm going to use my sewing machine, and I'm going to use a new needle. It just needs to be new and sharp. And I'm going to use any type of sewing thread I have, probably cotton thread. Scraps of some kind. Do you have some old jeans that you can cut up? That would be great. You're going to need cardstock. Now, you do not want anything too thick. This is way too thick because you're going to be sewing on your sewing machine and you won't be able to get through it. You really want something that's kind of like that thick. Again, kind of like a greeting card. Can be any size, but if you want it to be a different size than it is, again, obviously, X-Acto knife and a ruler. I also have my rotary cutter because I'm going to be using that to cut the little squares of denim. And then I have glue. So I love this glue, super awesome. Also, Elmer's. That's really all you need for this. And then I do, I'm not sure if I'm going to use fray check, but if you're someone that doesn't like a lot of fraying, well, fray check might be a good idea. So you can make this really any size you want. These, the squares are 1 inch. These, the squares are 1 1/4. You could even do one where it's 2-inch squares. You could make the entire sheet one if you want it to be bigger. Or again, you could cover something a lot smaller, even fold it to make a greeting card. You can do any size you want. I'm gonna show you 2 different ones. So I'm gonna take this piece of cardstock. I am gonna cut it down a little bit and then fold it to make my own greeting card. And then I have these like super weird, I don't know what these are, cards. And I'm going to just cover this one. And I'm gonna do them, I kind of like the size of doing the 1-inch squares. So when you're choosing what scraps you want to use, I think it's important to have a lot of lights and darks. I think that's what really kind of makes this so cool and graphic, but you can just do all one color. Now, if you only have one pair of jeans, don't worry, because usually you can use the front and the back of the jeans to get light and dark. You can also look for different areas that have been more like worn in. You could even open up some of the seams and find like a lot of darker areas. You really kind of just want to find a nice mix. And then the other thing that you want to think about is the edges and how much you want them to fray and how purposeful you want it to be. So these little squares, I did not pay any attention to the grain line when I cut these, which is why you'll see like little bits sticking out around the edges. So like this piece of denim, I just cut any which way, and you can tell because these are all kind of coming off. However, this denim, I found the grain and I cut along there so that I made it really clean. To do this though, you're generally going to need some larger pieces of denim so that you can find that grain line. So how do you find the grain line? Well, there's a couple different ways. You can just randomly cut somewhere and start to pull the little pieces off. And you're going to start to see that the grain line's like this. This side is already a little bit better. And what I'm doing here is I'm just continuing to pull off little single lines of thread so that, again, I can start to see that line emerge. So since this side with the white threads coming out is already like really straight and clean, I'm going to use that to line my ruler up against, and I'm going to start just cutting 1-inch strips, because then I'm going to turn those 1-inch strips into 1-inch squares. And along the way, I'm just going to keep pulling off these little extra threads that are coming off. And I'm just going to keep doing that with a bunch of different pieces of denim in different shades of blue. So when you have cut all of your little squares, and how many squares do you need? I mean, you can do math, but generally just make a ton, because also when you start to lay them out, you might want some light ones somewhere, dark ones somewhere. It's just always good to have extra. And then what you need to do is prep your cardstock. Now, you can, again, do this in a really methodical way, plot it out, measure, use a little bit of math, or you can kind of just willy-nilly start like throwing stuff down. I'm generally the like throwing stuff down type of person, but with this one, I am actually going to draw it out. And don't worry, the math is super easy. Basically, since all of these squares are 1 inch and they all need to kind of overlap, basically you need to create a shape that is divisible by 3/4 of an inch, because basically they are going to overlap. So I'll just show you. So I decided I'm going to use this and I'm going to fold it because I want it to be a card. So I've just folded a really kind of, not even all the way, just a little line there for me to see. And yes, this paper's a little bit wonky. Doesn't matter, I'm going to cover it. So it's a bit hard to see in the video, but all I'm doing is making a grid with 3/4 of an inch big squares. And I'm going to make this one with, I think it's 4 across and 6 or 7 down, but you can make it as big as you want. For this one, I'm going to leave room around the edges. For the other one, I'm going to go right up to the edge. Now, there are so many different ways that you could decide to put the colors. Sometimes I like putting the darkest ones at the bottom and going towards the light. This was a little bit more random, but I think I am going to do that again, do more dark towards the back. And all you want to do, you've got your glue. You don't want to use a lot, but you do want to keep it pretty secure, is you're going to take your first set and you're going to start, you basically just want these to kind of sit over every other little square. I'm gonna see, still that one's open, so every other one. And then you're gonna hop 2 lines down and do it again. It's okay if some of these are bigger, they're not going to get seen, really, or the outsides aren't going to get seen. And then I'm going to do that one and do that one. Okay, now I'm going to do, the next layer is going to go here. And I'm going to do this with like a medium. And see how kind of, it's totally fine that that's bigger than that. I just didn't cut very evenly, but see how it's overlapping all those corners. And then this little guy at the end. Oops. And you do want it to go over that edge. And so I'm just going to keep doing those all the way down. Now with this last layer, you're just going to go and randomly fill in all of these squares. You could start from the top and go down, but I kind of like how on this one it's like some of them aren't covered at all, some of them have two little corners covered, some just has one free. So again, you're just going to do it completely randomly. But these are going to get seen on every edge, so that's where I do kind of like to pull off, if you've cut it along the grain, pull off some of the edges so it's a little bit cleaner. You can also trim them if any are too big. Remember, do ones upside down so you can get really light colors. And I'm just going to go and fill it all in. So if like your hands are getting covered with glue and they're turning blue, yeah, that's just part of the process. Also, I would say, like, if you're thinking, wow, this is looking like a third grade art project, also, yep, that would be correct. If you don't want to do third grade art projects, maybe you've come to the wrong place. Okay, see, now, you know, like, hopefully it's not all like sticky and gummy because you haven't been using too much glue. But, and like the little edges probably are coming up totally fine. You just want it to be secure enough that you can take it over to your machine and sew without everything coming up. Now, I am gonna let this dry though before I sew it, because I do not want my sewing machine getting all wonky and gummy. So yeah, I'm gonna wait. I mean, you don't have to wait overnight, but you could, or you could wait like, I don't know, an hour or two. Depends what type of glue you use. Okay, now I'm gonna do this like weird card situation. So thankfully it kind of looks like it's divisible by 3/4 because it's like 3 and then 6, I think. So I'm basically just gonna do the lines. But I'm gonna follow the exact same process here that I did before. All right, this one, wow, it's a little bit wonky. So I let these kind of go over the edge, which I can either go back and kind of pull off, but I think is actually going to be kind of cool. And then when it turns, so again, I'm going to let this one, I could have done this with smaller squares too, but I'm gonna let this one dry as well. So I've waited about an hour and my glue is basically dry, so I'm now gonna take these both over to my sewing machine. So a couple things to think about when you're sewing. I already mentioned using a new sharp needle. You don't want one too big though, because again, remember, you're going to be putting holes in your cardstock. You also want to make sure that you keep a pretty long stitch length. If you make the stitches too tight, you'll be like perforating it and the cardstock could tear. You really can sew these in any pattern or shape you want. You just want to make sure you're sewing through every square. But you can also refer to this map to see how I've sewn mine. Now you could stop here, but I like adding another layer of paper to the inside of the card just to make it really clean, and because sometimes the inside of your stitch lines might look a little bit funky. And all I do is take a lighter weight piece of paper, this can even be like printer paper, and fold it, make it the same size as your card, fold it in half, and I use, again, a little bit of glue just to glue it down where it's folded and a little bit on each edge. And now that I'm looking at this one, I think there's a little bit too much room around the edges, so I'm just going to finally take my blade and trim this down. The smaller one doesn't need to be trimmed, but I'm still going to add some kind of paper in the inside to clean it up a little bit. So that's it. Now you have both your cards, your little mini one. You want to make sure it still fits in the envelope. And then your big one. Or again, you don't have to fold it at all and you can just keep it like this and frame it. Yeah, so give it a try.